So data interpretation is one of the most interesting areas to prepare for CLAT, and it has 15 marks in the CLAT paper. In order to do well in this section, which is basically about interpreting data which can be in different forms like a table set or a caselet or a bar chart, pie chart or a histogram, right? So there can be many forms in which the data can be represented, but essentially they are testing you in terms of your basic, very basic math skills, right? So what I recommend is that you should be comfortable with topics like percentages, simple interest, compound interest, profit and loss, averages, basics of time and work, and time, speed and distances. And of course, the number system topic, and very, very basic. I mean, you don't have to get into a complicated set of questions. And if you ask me what is the core of data interpretation, it is the topic on percentages. Now, what is that we have to be comfortable with? I mean, you have to be comfortable with ratios, you have to be comfortable with multiplying factors, comfortable with the change, percentage change, etc. Now, to give you very, very basics of how questions come in a table form. So, let us take an example here. Suppose sales of a company, let's say Hindustan Lever Limited, is 4,600 crores in 2010, and in 2015 it has become 9,800 crores. The questions that can be asked could be, what is the overall growth percentage? What is the simple annual growth percentage? What is the compounded annual growth percentage? So how do we calculate these? Now in this case, one method is definitely what we have learned in school, is that we do a percentage change, which is final minus initial upon initial into 100. So in this case, it will be 980 minus 460 upon 460 into 100, right? So this is one way of doing the question. The second way of doing the question is, I convert this into a ratio, right? So a 460 has become a 980, which is 46 has become a 98, which means a 23 has become a 49. So what is my overall growth percentage? Now before I start calculating this, you can still look at elimination of options. And what do you mean by elimination of options is, I will only consider options which are slightly more than 100%, right? Why? Because we see here that 23 has become 49. If had 23 become 46, it is a 100% growth, because whenever something doubles, it is a 100% growth. So when a 23 has become a 46, it's more than a 100% growth. Now here it is 49, right? So we have to look at an option which is slightly more than 100%. So one way of looking at the question is elimination of option. If I just have one option which is slightly above 100%, I'm going to mark it, right? The second thing is getting into specifics. Now how do we calculate this? Now again, we look at two approaches here. So a 980, a 460 has become a 980, right? So what is the growth percentage if we have to calculate? Before we do that, we convert this into an improper fraction. Now what is the improper fraction here? So a 980 upon 460, which is 160 upon 460. So that's the improper fraction here. 1 obviously is 100%, right? And 60 upon 460 is what we need to calculate. So this is slightly more than 10%, because a 10% of 460 is 46. Here we have 60. So 60 obviously is more than 10%. Again, I'm going to look at an option which is slightly more than 110%. So if there was an option which is between 100 and 110, I'm going to eliminate that. And I'm going to look at an option which is more than 110%. Again, getting into more specifics, we found that 60 is nothing but, the breakup of 60 is a 46 plus 14 upon 460. So a 46 upon 460 is 10%, right? And a 14 upon 460 is slightly more than 3%, because 1% of 460 is a 4.6 and a 3% of 460 is a 13.8. So that makes it slightly more than 13%. So if we get to, if there is an option like 113% plus and there is an option which is slightly less than 113%, we're going to look at an 113% 20% plus answer choice. So this is how we do it. The second way of doing it, like I said, is converting this into a ratio, that is 23 upon 49, and then calculating, a similar way. So 49 minus 23, which is 26 upon 23, right? So overall my ratio becomes a 26 upon 23 ratio. Converting that into an improper fraction, it will be 1 3 upon 23, and 3 upon 23 is slightly more than 10%, and we'll get to the same answer, which is 113% here, or 1.13. So either I say 113% or a 1.13, it will mean the same thing. So just understand one thing, that dealing with data interpretation as far as your CLAT exam is concerned is more about being adept with calculations, right? Now, so therefore, to put it in very simple words, if there is a growth percentage that we need to calculate for a number like from a 32, something has grown to, let's say, a 64, right? So I do not have to do a 64 minus 32 upon 32. We can just see the number is just doubled. So in terms of ratio, it is a 1:2 ratio, and a 1:2 ratio means an 100% growth. Similarly, if something was 36 and has become a 48, convert that into a ratio. A 36:48 is nothing but a 6:8 ratio or a 3:4 ratio. So it is as good as saying that a 3 has become 4, or it's a 1/3 or a 33.33% increase. So this is one type of a question in which you can use some calculation tricks. Second is, if you are asked a question on a simple annual growth or an annual growth, what we are supposed to do in an annual growth is divide the entire growth percentage by the number of time periods. Now here is a catch. A lot of times we make mistakes by mistaking it with the number of years. If you see, the number of years from 2010 to 2015 is actually 6 years. If we divide it by 6, it will be wrong. We have to divide it by the number of time periods. And to calculate the number of time periods, it will be 2015 minus 2010, which is final year minus the initial year, and that's 5. So we got 113% as a growth percentage, and we'll divide it by 5. Now we know 113 divided by 5 is going to be slightly more than 22% and slightly less than 23%, because 5 22s is 110 and 5 23s is 115. So we're going to look at an answer choice which is between 22% and 23%, right? That's where an answer would be. So my point is, never get to the exact answer. Don't start calculating, doing divisions. Look at an approximate value, and wherever you can eliminate, use those elimination techniques. Be very, very comfortable with ratios. You should know, for instance, if something grows by 10%, my multiplying factor has to be 11/10. When something grows by 20%, a 20% is nothing but a 1/5. So if I am x and I grow by 20%, I'll become x upon 5. So my multiplying factor will become 6/5. Similarly, if something grows by 25%, my multiplying factor will become 5/4, provided there is a growth. If there is a degrowth of 25%, it will be x minus 1/4x, and that becomes a 3/4x, right? Similarly, if something grows by, let's say, 14.28%, I should be quickly able to convert that into a ratio. I should know that 14.28% is a 1/7, and when something grows by a 1/7, my multiplying factor becomes a 8/7. If it drops, it becomes a 6/7. So my advice to you is, become very, very comfortable with the ratios, at least till 1/25. So 1/2 is 50%, a 1/3 is a 33.33%, a 1/4 is a 25%, a 1/5 is a 20%, a 1/6 is a 16.66%, a 1/7 is a 14.28%, a 1/8 is a 12.5%, a 1/9 is a 11.11%, A 1 by 10 is a 10%. A 1 by 11 is a 9.09%. A 1 by 12 is a 8.33%. A 1 by 13 is actually a 7.69, but it's just remember 7.7. It's easy to remember, right? 1 by 14 is a 7.14%. You will see this with all the ratios of 1 by 14, that the side after decimal is double of the side before decimal. So 7.14, 14 is double of 7. A 1 by 15 is a 6.66%. You can actually look at it as 20 by 3%. Similarly, a 1 by 16 is a 6.25%. A 1 by 17 is a 5.88%. In fact, there is a small trick that you can use for remembering any ratio pertaining to 1 upon 17. You know what we do in 1 upon 17? We multiply the numerator by 6. Here you have numerator as 1. So we multiply 1 by 6. That becomes 6. And then the double of 6 is 12. Right? And then we do 6 minus 0.12. We put 2 decimal shifts there. And 6 minus 0.12 is 5.88. Similarly, if we have a 3 upon 17, we will just do a 3 into 6, which is 18, a double of 18, which is 36. We will put 2 decimal shifts, which is 18 minus 0.36, and that will make it 17.64%. So this is a trick that we can use with 1 by 17, right? 1 by 18 is 5.55. In fact, if you have any term which is even, convert that into a 1 upon 9. For instance, if we have a 4 upon 18, just convert that into a 2 upon 9. It's easier to calculate. Similarly, if you have something like a 5 upon 18, right? Convert that into a 4 upon 18 plus 1 upon 18. We know what is 4 upon 18. We can convert that into a 2 upon 9. And 2 upon 9 is 22.22. And similarly, 1 upon 18 is 5.55. So we add both of them and get the answer, right? Which is 27.77. Similarly, 1 upon 19 is a 5.26. But just to remember 5.25%. Now what we are doing in this is multiplying the numerator by 5, right? And then adding half of it with a decimal shift. So this will become a 5.25, right? Similarly, if you have a 3 upon 19, what we do is multiply the numerator by 5. So 3 into 5 is 15. Half of 15 is 7.5. We do 1 decimal shift and that becomes 0.75. Therefore, this number will become a 15.75. Right? It's just easy to remember. A 1 by 20 is a 5%. A 1 by 19 is a 5.75, actually a 5.76, but just to remember, 1 by 19 is a 5.25, a 1 by 20 is a 5%, and a 1 by 21 is a 4.76. Actually, you just remember it as 4.75. So a plus 0.25 and a negative 0.25. Similarly, a 1 by 25 is a 4%, right? And 1 by 26 is a 3.85%. And a 1 by 24 is a 4.16. You can remember it as 4.15%. So be very, very comfortable with ratios. It will be very handy, and as far as possible, use multiplying factors, wherever you can insert that, right? So be comfortable with DI. DI is a subject which is extremely scoring. You can easily get about 12 to 13 marks out of 15, but you should be comfortable with, with basic maths, right? So try to solve different kinds of sets. You really don't have to go to a very difficult kind of a set, but it's more to do with your calculations and the speed at which you're doing, right? Do not try to write everything. You can do some of your calculations in your mind, and then when it comes to finally writing, you can then use your pen. But as much as possible, use elimination, use ratios, to really speeden up your calculations. This is one subject where you can really make a difference in terms of marks. So students who are not very comfortable with data interpretation on maths, they typically score in the range of 2 to 3 marks. and somebody who just becomes comfortable with DI as a section starts scoring about 12 to 14 marks. So look at a gap here that you can create. It's about 10 to 12 marks, and which means it could be a difference between an NLS Bangalore or a Ram Manohar Lohia, right? Or it could be getting into a great national law school or not even getting into CLAT. So please do DI. DI is a very important section, though it's just 15 marks, but it actually can make a huge difference as far as your final score and ranking is concerned. Thank you.